BETO Award, our next U.S. State Senator.
Hey, Penal, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, it's so good to be with you right now. This is awesome. At the outset of this campaign, thank you. Listen, this is amazing to see all of you here in a place in Collin County, in Plano, where we are not supposed to come out in numbers like these, come out together in a way like this. But we are defying the conventional wisdom, the partisanship that's dominated so much of this country for far too long. I want to tell you, if you are a Republican and you're here, you're in the right place. If you are a Democrat and you're here, you're in the right place. If you are an independent and you're here, you're in the right place. Especially those of you on the third floor. Yeah, good to see you guys. This is absolutely extraordinary, and this is the reason that we're back again in Plano with you. Every single time that we've been here, you have been so good to us, so warm, very warm today, so welcoming, so kind, so encouraging. You give me and everyone who's part of this campaign so much hope at the moment that we need it the most. We as a country, we as a people, we're gonna be okay, because we, the people of Texas, will make it so, and we will allow no small difference, no small issue that would otherwise divide us, keep us from the work at hand, the greatness to which we as Americans are entitled and are going to make happen in this country. Having visited each one of the 254 counties of Texas, going to Larry G's hometown of Abilene, Texas. And let's hear it for Larry G and Abilene, Texas right now. Larry, thank you for being here. Abilene, Texas, the first time we showed up in Abilene, which you all refer to as West Texas, and we in El Paso refer to as East Texas. I don't know how many people showed up, 25, 30 people in Abilene. But we showed up because the people in Abilene, no matter who they voted for in 2016 for president, no matter how red or Republican that community is thought to be, they're every bit as deserving of our attention, of being heard, of being listened to, of being fought for and represented and served. Am I right? And so we showed up, and we continue to show up. And last month, we held our 4th town hall over the last year and a half in Abilene, Texas. And on a weekday, more than 800 people in that community came out, filled up the Penal theater. And so I don't know about this idea that Texas is red, and I don't know about this idea that Texas will be blue, because before we are Democrats or Republicans, we are Americans, we are Texans, and we are human beings, and we're going to start treating one another that way. This campaign that we are all running together has been the most amazing thing outside of family that I've ever been involved in. Not only has it made me more hopeful than I've ever been in my life, it left me feeling more encouraged about the future of this country than I ever have been before, despite some profound darkness and disappointment that has affected too many of our fellow Texans, too many of our fellow Americans at this moment, because of the way that we have chosen to run this race, showing up for everyone in every county every single day, knocking on doors, making phone calls. En esta campaña, vamos de puerta en puerta, para entender mejor las quejas, las oportunidades, las ideas de los tejanos de este estado en cada comunidad, para cada familia, y no me importa si son republicanos o demócratas o independientes, somos tejanos humanos americanos y vamos a tratar cada persona con la dignidad y respeto que merecen como humanos. And we are, all of us, inspiring one another with our experiences, with our stories, with the lives that we are leading, the way in which we meet that profound disappointment sometimes, the darkness that we hear from the highest offices in the land, with a power and a joy that we have found in our lives and in our experiences. I'll tell you, for those of you from El Paso, you know that the city that we call home is one half of the largest binational community in this hemisphere, perhaps in the world. 3 million people from 2 countries, speaking 2 languages, come together where Ciudad Juarez and El Paso are joined, not separated by the Rio Grande River. And we form something far greater, far more powerful than the sum of the parts or the people involved. It may be why El Paso today is one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America, not in spite of, but because we are a city of immigrants. Because our very presence makes us safer and stronger and yes, more secure. And so listen, we can be defined by what we're against, what we are afraid of, what we want to wall off. Or we can be known by our ambitions and our aspirations and the work that each one of us is willing to commit to be able to achieve them. What if we got off of the back foot and stopped being defensive and apologizing for who we are, one of, if not the most diverse states in the United States of America, home to people who left their hometown, their comfort, their country, their culture, their language, strangers in a strange land, yes, so that they can do better for themselves and their kids, but yes, also because they are called to and inspired by this, the greatest country that the world has ever known, and they, by their presence, want to make it even greater. What have we decided? That we will never again allow another child to be torn from her mother's breast after that mother has traveled to Mexico, seeking asylum and refuge and security in this country, as have countless generations before her. What if we insist that every child, and there are hundreds today, while we enjoy our freedom, who are in foster homes scattered all over this country, who are in a tent encampment in the Chihuahuan Desert in Tornillo, Texas, just outside of El Paso, kids who do not know when or even if they will ever see that mother or that father who risked everything, including their lives, to bring them here to this country to safety, fleeing the deadliest countries in this hemisphere. What if we did not rest until every child is reunited with every parent, if they have no place to go and bring them here to this country? And if we add to that, there are 1 million dreamers in this country, almost 200,000 in the state of Texas, dreamers in our schools, dreamers teaching the kids in our schools, more than 2,000 dreamers in Texas, providing one of the most important public services that I can think of. Dreamers tonight, where it is tonight in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Somalia, in Libya, in Yemen, in Niger, putting their lives on the line for this country, as have countless brave Americans before them. What if we freed dreamers from the fear of deportation and made them U.S. citizens today, so they can contribute to their maximum potential with everything they've got for this country? I know we can do this. This, as a country, is our moment of truth. Today, where we are right now in Plano, this campaign that we have all decided to run in the best way that I can possibly imagine. Going to every single county, talking and listening to every single one of our fellow Texans, not accepting a dime from political action committees or corporations or special interests. This is the answer to the challenges that we face at this moment, and this is a message to the people of the future, our kids and our grandkids, who years from now are looking back at us at this moment wondering, given the fact that we could be a nation of walls, a nation that would ban all people of one religion from the shores of a country that is comprised of people of all religions and walks of life from the world over. We could be a country that defines the press as the enemy of the people instead of the best defense against tyranny. This could be a country. This could be a country defined by the pettiness and the name-calling and the partisanship and the paranoia, the hatred, the bigotry, the outright racism that dominates so much of the national conversation. Or we, the people of Texas, could come together and we could be the bold, strong, confident, big-hearted answer to all that small stuff. Focus on the future, on the things that we want to achieve, the things that no one thought were possible, and not just winning this election, but following through on every single expectation that we have set for one another. Like this, we could go from being the least insured state in the country, a state whose largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system, to the point that people get arrested on purpose who have schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression. Their suffering becomes too great. The only place they can take themselves is the county jail, where by law we are required to take care of them, to feed them, to house them, to clothe them, and to prescribe them the psychotropic medications that may make life bearable for them. It is unjust, it is immoral, it is unconscionable, and it is also extremely expensive. $400 a night to keep someone locked up because that's the only place they can go, versus $14.50 a day to provide outpatient mental health care services. We could be the state. That takes our experience as one of the 12 that refused to expand Medicaid, left $100 billion on the table. A state that sees school teachers dying of the flu, young men succumbing to diabetes in the wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet in the year 2018, a country whose taxpayers, all of us, invested in the innovations and the research and the science that came up with the cures and medications that are sold back to us at the most expensive rates of any people anywhere on the globe. We can be the people that lead on guaranteed, high quality, universal health care for every woman, every man, every child in this country. I know that we can do that. We can begin by expanding Medicaid. We can introduce Medicare as an option on the public exchanges. We can bargain for lower pharmaceutical prices so we can afford the cures that keep us alive and make life worth living. And we can do this in a state that sits at the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis 3 times as deadly for African American women, a state that has closed down more than half of its family planning clinics, making it that much harder for a woman to get a cervical cancer screening, to see a family planning provider, to see a doctor or provider of any kind. What if this state, when we say universal health care, we mean a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body, and have access to the providers to allow her to do that? We could be that state. We could be the state. We could be the state that decides that all of us, as we wrote down and committed ourselves to 242 years ago, are created equal. And that inherent, inside, unalienable, you cannot take this away from us, is our life, is our liberty, and is our ability to pursue our happiness. We can contrast that with a country that puts more of her own behind bars than any other country on the planet. A country whose prison population is disproportionately comprised of people of color. 1/3 there doing time for nonviolent drug crimes. And though we know that Americans of all races and colors and ethnicities and national origin deal and use drugs at the same rate, only some people will be arrested and serve time, including for possession of marijuana, a substance that's legal in 26 states in the Union. Who's going to be the last veteran to sit behind bars for trying to use medicinal cannabis in Texas to treat his PTSD that he came back from war with, who does not want to be prescribed opioids at a time that 70,000 of our fellow Americans are dying of drug overdoses. Who's going to be the last African-American woman to be behind bars for a substance that is legal in most of this country? We will end the war on drugs. We will end the prohibition on marijuana. And we will expunge the arrest records for those who are arrested for possession of marijuana so that they can get on with their lives, finish their education, work that job, better themselves, and do better for all of us. We can lead on this. And those school teachers that I talked about earlier, you all are my all-time heroes in life. I'm here right now because of you. My kids are going to the same world-class public school that I went to, Mesita Elementary in El Paso. Only when Amy is helping Ulysses with his math homework. He's helping him do math in Spanish this week. He's helping him do math in English next week. They are thinking, they are reading, they are speaking, they are learning, they are existing in 2 languages in this binational community. They're making the most of our advantage. And those school teachers who teach our kids against some mighty long odds, like the fact that so many school teachers today are not just teaching in that classroom, they've taken on a second job, sometimes a third job, just to make ends meet. Those teachers who, además, in addition, are also taking out of their pocket $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a year to pay for classroom decorations, pencils, paper, but also, because you have told me this, to pay for a hot meal for that child who's going to go back home to a home that does not have any food in the kitchen. Teachers who pay for a set of underwear and shorts and shirts for kids who show up in the same clothes day in and day out. Teachers who are teaching kids who come from mixed status families, meaning that some of those children, when they kiss their dad and their mom goodbye at the start of the day, when the kids go to school and the parents are going to work, that child does not know. Those parents are coming back home at the end of the day, or whether they've been swept up in a raid and sent back to a country that they have not been in years. Though they are working the toughest, the hardest, sometimes the crappiest jobs in this country that no one born in this country is willing to do. Imagine the anxiety. Imagine the anxiety that those children feel at the start of the day, or those kids who don't have a square meal to start the day, or have not gotten enough sleep, or this is the 4th house that they've lived in over the last year, and yet that teacher does something absolutely extraordinary, downright magical with the kids in that classroom. She transcends all of those barriers and obstacles and odds and makes something wonderful happen. What if we decided, because of that, one of the most important jobs in public service in this country, that we paid our teachers a living wage, that we made sure that they can teach to those children instead of a high-stakes, high-pressure, standardized test that in no way measures that teacher's performance or that child's progress or either of their potential. What if we decided, in a state that has not paid a cost of living adjustment for retired teachers despite their service in the classroom in more than 13 years, that we will ensure that they do not retire in poverty, that we pay them a real retirement, that we ensure that their healthcare costs are low, and that we recruit the best and brightest teachers into these classrooms going forward, because none other than General George Washington warned us more than 240 years ago that our ability to attract our fellow Americans into the most important jobs of public service is wholly dependent upon how they see those who preceded them in those same positions being treated by this country. I want to make sure that every young woman and every young man here who's even thinking about being a teacher knows that we will have your back, that we will respect your commitment, that we will honor your service. So let's stand behind them, let's get behind them, and let's make sure that they're successful. In much the same way that those service members that I mentioned earlier, who are serving in wars that have no end in sight, no definition of victory that we have defined, no commonly understood strategy, and yet, despite that, they're willing to put their lives on the line, they're willing to lose their lives, they're willing to know that they're going to come back with their lives changed forever. They're willing to take other lives in the name of the lives of their fellow Americans in this country. Let's do them a favor. When they come back, let's make sure that at a time that 20 veterans a day, every single day, take their lives, that they have access to world-class, high-quality mental health care at our VA without exception. Let's make sure that they have a roof over their head, that they can move on with their lives and their careers and their jobs, in their education, in their small businesses that they start, in the offices that they run for. But let's go one step further. Let's decide that we cannot pursue our foreign policy, we cannot try to solve the problems of the world on the backs of 18 and 19 and 20-year-old service members, that these endless wars must come to an end. We must be able to find peace and diplomatically, working with the people of the world, sometimes our enemies, find a nonviolent solution to otherwise intractable problems, because no lesser light than Albert Einstein reminded us, as we are in our 27th year of war in Iraq. I was a high school senior, 18 years old, when I remember George H.W. Bush first announcing U.S. military involvement, meaning U.S. service members' lives on the line in that country. Here we are 27 years later, I'm about to be 46, 3 kids of my own, and we are still there. Einstein said, the very definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. Let's be better than how we've been. Let's do something for the people of the future and those future service members, and let's get out of those wars and bring those young men and women back to this country. I know that we can do that. I know that you do not need to be told this, but one of the most important, one of the most momentous decisions that we can make as the 51st Senator for the state of Texas is who will sit on the Supreme Court going forward. And let me tell you, from our perspective, a state that ranks 49th in the country in voter turnout, not because we love our democracy any less than any other people from any other state, but because of the racial and ethnic gerrymandering in Texas that has drawn people out of their congressional districts, their state house districts, and their state senate districts. Racist voter ID laws intended to keep some people away from the polls, some votes uncast, and some voices unheard. We need a Supreme Court justice that believes in voting rights for every single American. You with me? In a state where it is perfectly legal, although it is not okay under any measure, to fire somebody because they're gay, to refuse to hire somebody because they're gay, or to know that we have 30,000 kids in the foster care system. A foster care system so underfunded and not overseen by those in positions of public trust that kids until recently at CPS were sleeping on top of and underneath the desk. This is a state where you can be too gay to adopt one of those children in your home. Under the guise of religious liberty, we deny people of same-sex marriages the ability to adopt in this state. What if, knowing what I told you about a woman's right to choose the settled law of the land for 45 years since the 1973 Roe versus Wade ruling, what if I told you that a people who have run an amazing campaign across the state of Texas without PACs do not think that corporations are people, and that money is speech, and that corporations can spend unlimited amounts of money affecting and purchasing the outcomes of legislation and elections, that we have a Supreme Court justice who not only believes in voting rights, but believes in civil rights, believes in a woman's right to choose, and believes in people over corporations. That will be the litmus test for the next Supreme Court justice if we have anything to say about it. Are you with me on this? Whatever you're doing, please keep it up. The last poll, released just last week, with less than 2 months to go, with a margin of error of 4%, shows us just 3 points down from the sitting junior U.S. Senator from the state of Texas. And to this cynical way of raising and spending money, going to the PACs, starting your own super PAC, having 10 national super PACs come into this race and buy TV time to try to make you scared of the other guy, make you afraid of the rest of the world, motivate you based on your fears and your anxieties instead of your hopes and your ambitions. To the $4.4 million that he raised in that way in the last 3 months. You and I together, the people of Texas, raised $10.4 million. No PAC, no corporation, no special interest. Every single day it is the people of Texas who are making this happen. But here it is. We're down to the wire. This is the home stretch, and it's 100% on us. This election begins. The most important day of it is October 22nd. That's the first day of early voting. If you are willing to vote on that first day of early voting, and you're willing to make the commitment right now, let me hear you. If like me, Amy, and almost everyone I've met on the trail, Republicans and independents and Democrats alike, if you want to win on the 6th of November, if you want to wake up on the 7th with a mighty hangover, without an ounce of regret given the stakes that we face, the odds arrayed against us, everything that we care about for this country that's on the line right now, and you're willing to make the commitment to knock on doors, to make phone calls, to talk to your fellow Texans, to bring them into this conversation. If you're willing to go to betofortexas.com and sign up, let me hear you now as well. So, no pressure, Plano. But the future and the fortune and the fate, not just of this state, not just of this country, not just of this generation, but every single generation to come is on our shoulders at this moment, and we've got to win this election. Let's get out there and do it.